My 8-year-old can make me laugh.
Of course.
As impressive as the LLMs are, an LLM has never made me laugh.
The spark of something that really surprises you is something I'm missing. Something I don't see really fundamentally coming up. We are currently far away still from the capabilities of human brain. And creativity is not something I'm witnessing in AI systems. But I see it as an increment of unlocking collective intelligence.
There's the accelerationists, and then there's the people who are saying, hey, let's pump the brakes a little bit. This is getting out of hand, and the government's trying to step in a bit. But it's not really evident how to step in a meaningful way.
No, most likely not desirable to try to slow down progress. It's more finding ethic, guiding rules, guardrails.
Top 3 biggest hits of humanity.
The biggest progress?
Yes.
Language, fire, and moral systems. I tend to believe that the biggest invention ever was language. Now we see language models that are accelerating. The path, wherever it takes us, is accelerating.
And yet you still say, go.
No one can say stop.
Dietmar, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thanks for having me here.
Do you want to give us a brief overview of who you are and what you do at Symphony and what Symphony does as well, for those that don't know?
I'm Dietmar Fauser. As you said, I'm the CIO/CTO of the company. So I'm overseeing essentially all technological aspects of the company, engineering, but also operational support, security, anything that really goes in the technical path. So I'm a French-German citizen. I'm living in France for quite a while, where we have the largest R&D center actually of Symphony is there. We have 130 or so people in this location. My professional background is essentially, so I'm a computer scientist. My professional background is IT systems that are high scaling and highly critical. I think that's why I was hired into Symphony, because when I joined Symphony, I would say it was early stage startups. So there was quite some work to be done to make the system scalable and highly available, which is obviously the case now. So what is Symphony? Is a communication platform. So we offer 4 product areas. We refer to them as MVDA. So the first one is messaging, which is the historical chat platform that is used massively by applications, by bots. That is providing extremely secure, so highly encrypted communication exchanges, mostly for regulated entities like banks, dealers. So there are lots of controls in the system that allow to filter data, apply data loss protection, export the data, of course, into safe spaces, because we, Symphony, never see the data in clear, of course. We have extended the Symphony network still on the messaging side into what we call federated channels. So Symphony is offering connection channels into end-user communication networks like WhatsApp, WeChat, Line, SMS, and others, and voice capabilities, video capabilities over these channels. So that is the historical messaging platform. A few years ago, I think it was back in 2021, we acquired a company in what we call the trader voice space. So these are highly performant real-time communication systems for voice, so real-time audio channels. So this is used by traders in the large trading houses, investment banks that are dealing with products that are not in the electronic trading space. So this is mostly commodity markets, but also some of the more complex derivative products that are either changing too often or are too complex or too low volume for full electronic trading. And on top of this, we have an industry directory with a few 100,000 users in it, and that is a highly curated directory view of who's doing what in the industry. So, for example, it gives you a view on who in a given entity, a bank, is dealing with equities, with futures, with whatever products and which geographical locations, so that it's easy to target people on the other side based on this curated knowledge. Because, for example, if there's a trade break, you have to find a counterparty to deal with the settlement of a trade exception.
Okay.
And the last one, I think this is a bit of the topic of today, is analytics, because over the platform is a lot of highly valuable and critical information exchanged. So, of course, trading flows over the trader voice space, but in the messaging application also is a ton of valuable applications, data in the data space. So we work actively to see how we can make sense of this data in a highly secured and ideally cloud-based environment. I guess we're going to come to this a little later.
Great. So how long have you been in your current role then at Symphony?
I joined Symphony like almost exactly 6 years ago, October 1st in 2019. Prior to this, I was working in a different industry, airline IT, so large-scale IT systems offering services to airports, hotel chains, airlines.
Okay.
Bit of a different work.
So you've been there for 6 years. So in my mind, that means you've been there 3 years before generative AI and 3 years after. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
Yes.
More or less.
Almost exactly. I think ChatGPT made their coming out in November 2022, if I remember it right. Coincidentally, we announced a few days before the acquisition of a company based in Tel Aviv and New York called Umony back then, specializing in AI solutions for the financial industry.
Okay. What type of AI solutions were they doing back then? It must have been pre-generative AI.
It was pre-generative AI, so a mix of more traditional rule-based with human curated taxonomies and deep learning, so machine learning in it. The several areas, mostly ESG oriented, so intaking a very large amount of data sets, mostly yearly earning calls and stuff like this, and capturing accuracy scores. Are they compliant with their public marketing? And this was targeted towards the banks back then, mainly to help them getting faster in producing these very voluminous reports.
Okay. So walk me through that transition. You're at Symphony for 3 years. You acquire this company specialized in AI, cutting edge AI at the time, and then you see the ChatGPT demo. What are your feelings? What are you thinking at that point?
Well, I think it was a big aha moment for everyone, even though generative AI was already in the specialist area around a bit before. Mm-hmm. But then they made this big announcement of an agent that allows to interact in a very easy way with the first time, I think, to a wider public on how generative AI models are really producing output. Mm-hmm. So I think it created a large trigger and everywhere to say, okay, we have to do something with this to understand how.
So you
how
knew
this
as soon
works.
as 3.5 came out, you that was on your radar immediately?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially as the company we acquired used older technology, was more like on-prem deployed. So this opened suddenly a new, I would say, a mental space to think about much more advanced modern solutions.
Right. Okay. And how did you reconcile that with the company that you just acquired? How were you thinking strategically at that point? Because when 3.5 came out, it was fairly convincing, but we had no idea, or at least I had no idea at the time, what the arc of progress was going to be. Was 3.5 this new thing that came out and it was just going to kind of make incremental progress over time, or was it just going to, hockey stick kind of accelerate?
I think at the beginning, it was mostly a lot of people tried to get their head around what this really meant and what type of new applications, solutions could be really built on top of this. If you think, I mean, I'm an IT guy, but if you look, for example, at code assistance, generative code assistance was there for a long while, well before ChatGPT announced the language models mm-hmm. with generative capabilities. So I think for the people deep in IT, it was not so much of a shock, but it suddenly woke up everyone, like also the people in the business, on the business side, marketing people, everyone was kind of inquiring, what does this mean? And I think we still do to some extent. Try to understand how things are evolving, how we can stabilize solutions, what are the operational processes underneath, what the new certifications mean in this space. Mm-hmm. So to cut it short, I think it was a big incremental step. But that's my IT view. I think for others, it might have been a revolutionary.
So you saw it as more of a continuation of the existing code gen technologies as opposed to something just revolutionary?
Myself, yes, and I think the people around me.
Okay.
Because we had glimpses of generative capabilities already before. I mean, for example, in the core coding, for the last decade, we had tools that allowed to generate code. So it was code completion at the beginning, and then snippets of code. But the big change was the ease of interaction, I think, with AI models, where suddenly everyone could throw a prompt against something, and you got responses back that were stunning and still do stun us, really, by their accuracy, sometimes by their hallucinations also. So it's a after all, it's a very massive change.
Right. So I know you said you sort of saw it coming. It was more of a continuation, but was there an aha moment when you use it for the first time where it accomplished something that you didn't think it was capable of?
Totally, yeah. When I started playing around with it, I asked it to generate a poem about symphony and stuff like this, so playing around, and while it was really surprising by the capabilities. And then, as always, I wouldn't call this the valley of disillusion, but then you start thinking about, okay, how can we really productize this fundamentally?
How could you? What did you do with it?
Well, so first of all, Symphony, we are more in a communication platform game than in the AI AI generative space, so to say. But well, one example, and I think partially we could have done this with deep learning already, is, for example, to capture the flows of audio trading, to transcript this into a text transcript, and then more or less in real time extract data out of what is happening in there. So I mean, by what is happening, is there a risk cooking up? Is there a likelihood for a trade exception? And fundamentally capturing that a deal took place. I mean, traders, when they're over the phone, they say, how much, what is the price for such a product? Someone says, I can make it for this. And then the trader says, okay, done. This is a contract.
Right.
And capturing this as soon as possible for the various downstream systems is, of course, very, very important. And then comes the generative aspect, is that it's easy to make a textual summarization of what traders just exchanged.
Okay. So
the generative aspect was the missing piece, really. The analytics, I mean, audio voice analytics is a very well researched field.
Sure.
So getting the signals, getting quality metrics, transcribing this into a textual form is one thing. And then comes the more advanced features, like generating output out of this.
Anything you've used it for internally at the company to speed things up, to automate grunt work?
Yes. So we use it sometimes directly internally. For example, our legal department is using very advanced AI to analyze incoming requests, to generate a first version of output documents. So we use it there. We use it in the security space here a bit indirectly, because we are partnering, for example, with a company like Mandiant from Google that use very advanced AI to capture abnormal patterns in the system usage, like abnormal network behaviors. This is perhaps not really generative AI, but it's very advanced machine learning.
Okay. And what would you say your biggest success is with clients in terms of your AI application?
Clearly, the voice transcription is the one that is coming up fast, because historically this data was just dumped into archives for compliance reasons. So if the authority of the markets, for example, comes in and say, okay, we want to check what happened on a given trading event, they went into the archives and dug it out, basically.
Right.
So the fact that you can observe these data streams in real time and condense it and make semantic use out of it, not just a textual transcription, is a massive win for everyone.
And it's multilingual too, as well.
It is, yeah. Even though the trading is mostly happening in English, but also
even international trading still happening in English for the most part. Okay.
Mostly. But by the way, that's an interesting area, because here we see that standard language models are falling a bit short of expected quality, just because the trader English is a slang that is deeply cryptic. So there are hundreds of abbreviations everywhere. They never quote a full price. They go only the digits after the comma, for example, because the price variations are minimal in some areas.
Okay.
So you really have to specialize language model.
This is an international kind of dialect that everybody speaks, or is it an American phenomenon? Or
there are variations. So if you have traders in Mexico or traders in India, you have to get relevant data samples to train the models.
Okay.
Which is one of the problems, is to get hold of critical data sets from our customers so that we can specialize language models to increase the accuracy. It's at the end, it's an accuracy game.
So you're training your own models then specifically on this very particular way that the traders speak, and you're having decent success doing that?
We do this incrementally over the last year or so, very actively. So we played with different models, with different execution environments. We use essentially Google Vertex AI and Amazon for this, and we played with different models. And we see that smaller, more specialized models yield less extensive computational resources and better result than highly general language models that are just not trained on these data sets because they are not publicly available.
Right. And so the output of that would be something like you're able to extract the ticker symbol, the sale price, or the buy price.
Exactly.
And I mean, I can imagine a million ways that that's useful, but in your mind, like that's gold. What are you using that gold for?
Well, we essentially hand this back to the owner of the data so that they can build products or include this in their internal workflows, because a lot of systems participate in the global trading activity. You have risk management solutions, you have general observability questions behind, and as soon as you can with high accuracy extract data, then you can start thinking about populating automatically order execution systems, because when a trader does this over the phone, someone still has currently to key the data into an order execution management system, for example.
Right.
And this bridge is about to drop, so that the data extraction happens in real time, and then automatically we can feed this into structured APIs to populate deal execution systems. Because while closing a deal by a trader is one thing, but you have to get this in all forms of downstream systems, because at the end someone has to move money, someone has to follow up monetary flows, so all types of systems. So the goal is, as usual in this space, I would say, is to structure unstructured data and feed it into other agentic systems in the future, or into classical transactional systems like an OMS.
Right. And if you're automating trades based on the faith that you have in the AI to do an accurate transcription, that means you have a very high level of confidence that the AI is doing a good job.
Yes.
Okay.
But I don't think that the systems are currently ready for do this fully automated without human supervision, lengthy quality control processes. So the stuff I'm talking about here is essentially not fully in production.
Okay, so this is incremental progress, but you see the end goal as trader speaks, machine executes.
Yes.
Okay.
And perhaps even synthetic agents in the future. We talk about generative AI here, but the interesting thing is that in the synthetic media space, you can generate human voices, and we could think, I'm not sure if the industry will want this, but we could think about agents So AI agents that interact with a human through human voice interactions.
Give me an example of what that would look like.
An agent, like a classical Turing test approach. But I need to clarify that this is not in production, and it might never go because I think once this is done, humans will step out and it will be electronified anyway. But the idea would be that, for example, a trader talks to a group of other people, typically who can give me a price on a given product that I want. This goes to 10 people, and perhaps one out of these 10 is an automatic agent that generates the voice and say, okay, I can make this product at that price.
Okay.
And you would not necessarily know, given the accuracy of synthesized voice, that wasn't a human, but it was a machine.
Right. So kind of an assistant listening in, transcribing, and executing.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's also another use case, by the way.
Yeah.
Is often other people than traders are listening into trader voice exchanges, mid-back office people, so that they know what's going on. They can key deals into systems, as I mentioned briefly before.
Mm-hmm.
So this could be agentic AI bots that say, okay, I got it, and I do the downstream work, but it wasn't a human. It was a synthesized voice.
Okay.
Synthetic media is a very active research space.
Right. Okay.
Hence the deepfake folks that try to capture in real time that people you think you talk to are not humans.
Oh, it's a huge problem. Yeah, it's the latest scam wave. Yeah.
It is, yeah, and it goes not only in voice, obviously. It's also video synthesization.
Right.
Synthetic media.
So as a technologist, you seem to be confident that AI is, if not the future, a very big part of the future. Where are clients right now with that? Because, you're familiar with the tech, you know what it's capable of, you probably know what good uses are and what bad uses are. Like, when is it good to use generative AI? When is it better to use traditional deterministic code? Where are the clients' minds right now?
That's going to require a long answer, I think.
We've got time.
So first of all, I observe, as I briefly mentioned at the beginning, a big hype. When I say AI, everyone sees this. So we want AI a bit everywhere. Now, AI is very well present in areas where very large data sets have to be analyzed and decisions be based upon. So this is typically fraud detection, risk management. I'm talking mostly here in the financial space. So in these areas, the banks and the other large players have invested for the last decade already a lot of money. I see this more as an evolution of classical statistical approaches into more modern, unsupervised AI systems. Another area where I see a lot of adoption is, of course, e-retailing. Having agentic or AI bots listening into chats with end customers, providing support, providing ideas, capturing what's going on the client interface in retail banking. I mentioned the legal aspect. So in the whole legal space, all sort of documents now get analyzed and generated by AI, at least the first version, so that humans then can just do health check, quality checks, and ensure that the accuracy of the documents are there. So here, this is really generative AI. So it's very interesting to see that a bit specialized models can generate a text that is deeply precise in the legal space, for example. I mentioned all types of reports on ESG reports, yearly earning calls. You see generative AI is kicking in everywhere.
And when you pitch your version of the future at Symphony to existing customers, what's their reaction? I ask this because AI tends to be very polarizing, in large part because newspapers like to be polarizing and have controversial headlines because that sells newspapers. And so on the one hand, people talk about AI kind of taking over the job market and there not being any more jobs for entry-level people. And on the other hand, they talk about AI being a giant hype bubble and it's going to be a big flop and we're going to go back to doing everything by hand again. What's your perspective of the client mindset right now when you talk about stuff that you're building? Are they welcoming AI, or is there a push to stick with the more tried and true methods of doing these things?
I think essentially they are welcoming AI, but have difficulties, like ourselves sometimes, have difficulties to see when the maturity level and the quality level hits acceptable levels to build real products. So when I'm pitching AI, it's twofold. So Symphony is a well-established communication platform in the industry. And I see a big danger coming up where people start talking about the agentic web. And if in the future, more or less autonomous AI agents starts talking to each other, the problem will be how you can report on this, how you can surveil this, how you can ensure that everything is 100% encrypted, that the regulatory controls are in place. But by this, I mean, you might want to restrict to whom some bots can talk, not just discovering over discovery services who is offering a service and then calling it and being invoiced right away, by the way.
Right.
So I see tons of dangers for the time being and a lot of work to ensure that this is done in a compliance and secure way.
Right.
Like the historical chat for us. I mean, you could think, why is Symphony there? Why don't I just use WhatsApp or other communication channels? And it shows that in a large bank, for example, people who are in the core banking might work on deals with different customers or even governments that are very strictly disallowed to talk to their own traders, because they have to ensure that the traders don't get insider knowledge prior to the general market.
Okay.
So we implement stuff like information barriers that control who can talk to whom.
Right.
And I'm deeply convinced that in the future of an agentic web environment, we're going to need these controls, including data loss protection, so that a bot doesn't start communicate to the external world, highly critical data sets. So that is one part of the positioning of Symphony as a backbone for AI-based communication, where I think we have an interesting play to play. And the other one is in the product space. I mean, I mentioned trader voice analytics. So this is a more, how shall I say this? A more classical product pitch than not being the base infrastructure to execute things that we might not build ourselves. Like on Symphony, you have like more than 3,500 bots running over the platform that we don't build. Okay. Our customer do so for all types of use cases. And if I had to predict something, I would say that agentic traffic will explode in the coming decades on an extreme scale.
Agentic traffic. Can you describe for the listeners what you mean by agentic traffic?
More or less autonomous AI agents that are working on all types of workflows that discover the services that are available inside or outside of the organization and invoke other agents.
So basically, they've got a set of tools that they can call, and they make a decision whether or not they need an external resource to continue doing their work.
Exactly, external or internal. And the big actors like Google, Microsoft, Meta, and those guys, they work very actively on agent-to-agent protocols through agent-to-agent or MCP protocols.
Right.
So that the protocol aspects are easy. So it's very easy then to connect to someone, invoke a service. And the other day I learned that even like micropayments to invoke a service could be done automatically. And so you have to have controls over this so that your agents don't get crazy.
Right. It's a whole new attack vector, right? If your agents have a wallet that they can use to spend for individual API requests, then there's a whole new set of motivations to attack those
Exactly.
bots.
This and or that they use communication channels that you hadn't foreseen
Right.
at all, because these things become autonomous. That's the big change, is that they are not classically programmed anymore, but you prompt them, so to speak. You have to do this, and then the systems, we are not they are fully, but this is what I'm seeing upcoming.
Yeah.
Is that the agents figure out what to do and how to do it.
Right. Right.
And this is really a big game changer. And it's not declarative programming anymore.
Right. And how do you even test that?
I think you have to start by having constraining controls so that you know what is the space of possibilities to start with first. And then testing is a difficult question. So I think it's more a game of surveillance. What are they concretely doing? And sampling the outputs and try to understand whether the generated output is accurate. So the short answer to this is I don't really know yet. So
right. I don't know either.
It's a very new field.
Yeah. So
and the nature of really complex AI models is that even fundamental researchers do not always understand the reasoning. I have to put some brackets around this of the model. So it is hard.
Right. Why it made a particular decision to do something. And
exactly. So people refer to this as, we work a lot with Google. So Google calls this grounding of AI models. So how can you show how a given model, so an agent, comes to a given output?
Right.
Is this repeatable? Is this stable from one training to another? If you upgrade the models, does it still behave the same way?
Right.
So there's a lot to be put in place to ensure that you have at least the guardrails that contain what's happening in the desired space.
Right.
Even if you don't really understand.
And there's a huge push from government to make sure that there's, a certain modicum of safety. But how do you put up those guardrails when your agent has a wallet? It can make calls to tools that it wishes on demand. It's combinatorically impossible to test all possible outcomes or even a fraction of them.
Which is why I mentioned that the constraining aspect is so important. You have to be able to say, okay, this is what is allowed, and have fixed boundaries so that the agent can't step out and suddenly call APIs that you didn't allow or you didn't even know about, really. Because we're going to see agents or API systems that gives discoverability services. So who is offering such a service? And based on this, an agent might decide, okay, I go left or right. Well, I think this is from a quality and a surveillance point of view a no-go.
Okay. Are there any features that you would love to build at Symphony where you feel like the AI is just not there yet? Maybe in a year, if it gets better, I'll be able to build this and it will be amazing, but not today.
Well, currently we are already very, very occupied by doing things we think is currently feasible. Frankly, I'm sorry, I'm not sure.
Your plate is full already.
That I have the answer, because the technology and the capabilities are evolving so fast.
Fast.
And currently we are more focused on exactly what we just said. How can we offer a system that is to some degree repeatable, predictable, and provides the desired outcome, rather than thinking too much ahead for the time being.
So if we go back in time, then you mentioned earlier before we started recording, you mentioned that you'd worked at MongoDB, correct?
I was advisor to MongoDB.
You were an advisor to Mongo. Okay. I'm thinking in my mind, in my short career as a software professional, I've gone through a few hype cycles. I've gone through the NoSQL hype cycle. Not to say that there was nothing valuable there. It's just when I say hype cycle, everybody adopted it thinking that this was going to be the solution to everything. Another one was GraphQL as a replacement for REST. Again, not to say that there's no value in GraphQL, but it shouldn't always replace a RESTful API. And now I feel like people who have PTSD from these past 2 hype cycles, they look at AI and they think, I'm just going to wait for the bubble to pop because it's the same thing all over again. I get the sense that you don't really believe that we're on the same arc as we were before. Are we in a hype cycle? And if so, where are we in the hype cycle?
I think most definitely globally we are in a hype cycle, and that's my really personal view. I think there is a massive bubble cooking up in overinvestment in data center capabilities.
An overinvestment.
I just read an article yesterday that Google said within 12 months they dropped the power consumption and the resource consumption of Gemini prompting by a factor of 40. And we're going to see large optimizations. And I think, as you hinted, I believe that traditional systems will stay around for a long while, and the adoption will take some time. Some will take up quickly. I mentioned security, fraud analytics. These things are getting really concrete and yield, even if there is a little bit of inaccuracy, much better results than the historical systems currently do. And as always, or at least by my experience, when there is new stuff cooking up, like you mentioned, NoSQL, my previous company, we adopted NoSQL very early at an extremely large scale because we had to solve extremely high transactional workflows. By this, I mean like more than 1 million transactions per second kicking into a system. And relational database could absolutely not cope with this. So just having very simple put and get operations on individual objects was just a super big step forward in building systems. Okay. But we didn't try to replace all the traditional databases with NoSQL just because everyone wanted to do it. So the lesson learned and the advice is try to develop a sense of where the maturity is high enough and where it makes sense to use new technology. Don't do it just for the sake of adopting new technology because your marketing is pushing you for it, or because you think there is peer pressure, everyone does it, and you might be on a perception basis lagging behind if you don't do it. Try to take the tools that really solve your issues, your problems. I think is the good advice. But I'm talking about a hype cycle because currently it's all over the press everywhere, and there are massive investments. Like we have seen 100 billion investment in OpenAI this week. But it's a massive change in technology and capability. So it will come big scale a bit everywhere, and it will take time. So, for example, if I look into traditional software engineering, software development, AI systems is, some people don't like it when I say, but are still very poor when it comes to really complex algorithmical problems, new things that you want to build where there is no corpus of existing solutions. Right. The software generation is just not at all yet at the level you would expect from an experienced developer with domain and historical knowledge. Right. It's not there. It's good at code completion, building boilerplates, simple things, building complete systems. If you want to throw in a new website, for example, all of this is good. Okay. But if you want to optimize mathematical problems, we don't see yet the quality.
You said it yourself. It's not currently as good as an experienced engineer. But what does that mean for the marketplace now, where there's junior engineers looking for their first job? And what I'm hearing is that it's very hard now for younger people to get their first job because traditionally a junior engineer is hired, let's be honest, to do a lot of the grunt work. And there's less and less grunt work because it could be automated with AI. So are you seeing that at all in the marketplace? And what are your thoughts on the shift?
Me personally, I don't see this yet, because we look for experienced engineers most of the time doing stuff that I currently don't think automated systems can offer. There are complete spaces of highly disruptive activity. If you look in the API mapping, data mapping, ETL stuff, so importing data and mapping it into other APIs. For this, for sure, AI-based solutions are extremely handy, and that's a big part of, I would say, less experienced or less skilled or trained developers work on this. Some UI interfacing, so there's clearly a disruption taking place.
Are you of the mindset that if you go back to the beginning of the internet, and then the dot-com boom and all that stuff, nobody really anticipated the new jobs that were going to be created. It was pretty evident that newspapers were going to take a hit, right? Because now you could just look at Google and see the news, for example. Where do you think we are with AI? Are you worried about that? Are you more of the camp that this is going to create 100 different new job titles? Or are you of the camp that this is going to render obsolete 100 job titles, or somewhere in the middle? Is it both?
I think it's both. I try to take, as much as I can, a bit of a step back and also try to get a historical perspective in my mind. So here I'm winding back like more than 100 years ago, in the first big industrial revolution. People were literally walking around destroying machines, because suddenly there were machines to build tissues and things like this. So people were extremely afraid that these jobs were all going away. And they did. In fact, they did. But other jobs came in. And I think we're going to witness something similar.
Job destruction and job creation.
Yes.
Maybe not job creation as soon as the jobs are destroyed, and maybe not a smooth transition for those people.
Maybe not. And perhaps more switching into other industries. Like I think we're going to have much more. We are growing older and older. We're going to need more people dealing with physical support to old people and things like this. In IT, I think we're going to see, and that would be an advice to a young engineer, is specializing in understanding how models are really working, to be part of the disruption rather than being disrupted. But it's a bit of a complex field, so you have to have mathematical skills, you have to have statistical skills, of course, to be part of this play. But a lot of companies are not really desperately, but are looking for people who understand how AI is working, not to apply it. And so there will be lots of engineering jobs.
So you wouldn't hesitate to somebody going to college who is interested in computer science, you wouldn't hesitate to say, go study, get your computer science degree today?
I wouldn't, no.
Because a lot of people are saying, don't do that because there's not going to be any jobs.
I wouldn't do it, but I would possibly say, try to do it in a multidisciplinary approach. So, for example, the job market is exploding in biomedical imaging, for example. We clearly see that this type of technology is extremely strong at pattern detection, so detecting skin cancers or genetic anomalies. These systems are very good, and there have to be machines, scanners be built. So that's a huge area of innovation and job creation.
So your advice then to somebody going into college would be, go for the CS degree, but do it in a multidisciplinary fashion. So if you were to do it again today, you'd do that?
I think so, yeah. Or go really deep in IT. Huh? I mean, if you're employed at OpenAI, you get extreme salaries, and they look for highly advanced people that are skilled in this space. Huh? So the innovation on AI systems will go on for the next years, decades. Huh?
Do you feel like we're approaching an asymptote in terms of the progress? I remember, 3.5 came out and it was fantastic. And then, you'd use it and you'd run into some limitations. And then 4 came out and it was mind-blowing. And then each time they iterated, it felt like it was 10 times better than the previous. Now GPT-5 comes along, and to me, I'm not even sure it's better. It feels agentic. We were talking about these AIs looping and calling tools, external resources, internal resources to do their job. It feels like there's so much of an emphasis on them being agentic now that they sort of get into a loop, and they're running a lot longer as well. Do you feel like we've reached a point where they don't know how to keep eking out those incremental gains, and so they've leaned into agentic frameworks?
Well, I think agentic is an application of the underlying model usage. I tend to believe that currently we see some form of asymptotic progress in the sense that the largest model now have 200 billion parameters. It shows that throwing in another 100 billion doesn't seem to gain 30% of better results. So there seems to be, at least currently, a little end to this game to make the models bigger and bigger and bigger.
It sort of feels like there needs to be some qualitatively different type of breakthrough in order to get to AGI. Would you agree with that?
Yes. You mentioned agentic several times. So when I look at the human brain, for example, this isn't one big unit that is dealing with everything. So there are areas of the brain are specialized in managing your optical systems, other more on the body movements, fundamental controls. You have the cortex that is more specialized in executive reasoning. So it looks like a network of interplaying subsystems, so to speak, that are specialized in different tasks. Because just controlling our vision is an extremely, extremely complicated thing. Just to give an idea, which I find funny, a small children between the birth and 4 years is ingesting as much data through the optical system as is used to train the largest models currently. If you just look at the data volumes coming in. So there are complex data filters. The data gets condensed into memorizable pieces because it would just be way too much information flowing in. And I think we're going to see big evolutions in the future of like less extremely big systems, but more of a network of interacting systems. And if at some point in time something like general intelligence or super intelligence really gets birth, which I'm still doubtful about, I think it will be a complex interaction of systems that reach this state.
Sort of like the way the human brain
works. Human brain, or even a human culture altogether. We move here a bit in a different field, but if you look at what an individual can deal with and what a university or a whole culture can deal with, you reach different levels of complexities. And I think we're gonna witness similar things, and individual systems have their skills. You're gonna see clusters of individual systems that deal with really complex things, and most likely in the future we will see clusters of clusters interacting. But I don't know. I'm really projecting stuff that no one knows.
It's fascinating, though.
For sure, not me.
Some people are talking about the need for LLMs in order to progress to the next level. They need to be able to ingest the world, not just corpuses of texts and images, but to be able to have like multisensorial capabilities, to be able to smell, to be able to see, to be able to taste. And that's a whole new data set. And it kind of makes me wonder if the human mind could be reduced to a program. I kind of often wonder, how big would that program be?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a fascinating.
I really believe, I changed a bit my mind on this, but I think we are currently far away still from the capabilities of a human brain in terms of creativity, executive thinking, having a sense of being. All of these things are far out, I think, still. While I thought, like, had you asked me the question 2 years ago, I would have been more optimistic or pessimistic, depending on the point of view you take, that the systems reach a level of consciousness, for example, much quicker. And currently, I don't see this coming.
What changed your mind?
Well, I think I looked more in the research simply over the recent 2-3 years, and what's the state of the art and what type of problems are still out there. And creativity is not something I'm witnessing in AI systems.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I kind of noticed the other day that as impressive as the LLMs are, an LLM has never made me laugh. Not one time has an LLM come up with something where I thought, oh, that's funny, or that's originally funny, that kind of, it's quirky. I don't know if you had the same experience.
I do, yeah. Sometimes I try to toy a bit around it,
Yeah.
so it will repeat jokes it found here and
Right.
there. But the spark of something that really surprises you
Yes.
is something I'm missing, and something I don't see really fundamentally coming up on.
And when people try and equate, the capabilities of an LLM to an X-year-old child, for example, they say, okay, it's about as smart as a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 15-year-old. Now they're saying it can do college-level math. My 8-year-old can make me laugh.
Of course.
ChatGPT cannot make me laugh.
And there is another aspect to this, is that children, or I think intelligent beings in general, are fundamentally capable of self-learning and acquiring tasks at a stunning speed. I mean, if you just think about how complex it is to walk upright like we do, that's an extremely complicated thing. And the investment of Google with Boston Dynamics it's fascinating what they are doing, but it shows that just this aspect of our learning is already extremely resource intensive and complex. And I'm not talking here about reasoning about Shakespeare or things like this.
Have you heard of P-doom? Have you heard of this expression, P-doom? It's probability of doom.
Oh.
This was getting a lot of press in the early days when the improvement of the AI was so rapid that people were prognosticating that, okay, in 5 years, AI is going to take over the world. It's going to become conscious, and it's going to take over the world. And people were worried about safety and what would happen once AI is able to create new viruses and things like that. Are you concerned about that stuff at all?
I am. I think in the areas of advanced weapon systems or biomedical weapons, bioweapons, I think it's a very dangerous tool. We see that AI systems are currently, that's why I mentioned the medical space that is very active, excuse me, are generating viruses that can destroy bacteria, for example. So we see a whole new playground of capabilities that we were far away from realizing, just because the structure of a human genome or of genomes in general is extremely complicated.
Right.
And for these type of analyses and spotting patterns, these large systems that grew out of extremely big statistical data sets are just very good. So in the wrong hands, I think it's a danger. There's a lot of ethical work going around, and people that are very advanced in the research are warning about the potential dangers of this, like generating new weapons and or viruses that can be targeted. It's new capabilities always comes with new risks and stuff we hadn't foreseen before.
I think in the early days, one of the big fears was that one of the larger companies or one of the larger nation states, maybe China, would develop a super specialized AI, and they would have capabilities that nobody else would, and they would use it for evil. I was a bit surprised as time has gone on, the way that companies are able to replicate findings of other companies. So as soon as one company makes a leap in their reasoning capabilities, whether it be Meta or Anthropic or X, all of a sudden, I don't know whether it's they're stealing talent from other companies, but no later than a week or two, everybody's caught up. So I guess that's potentially a good thing if we're talking about the dangers of one company or nation state taking over.
I would agree, and I think one of the reasons, at least how I see, is that the research community still exchange on breakthroughs and what's going on. So there's a lot of open source development in this field going on, and Anthropic and others are sharing deeply into their internal research what they are doing.
Right.
So it's relatively available if you have the capabilities to put it in place. I mean, it's one thing to understand the systems, but you still have to have the execution capabilities of OpenAI or China or these extremely big actors who can deploy these systems that are extremely resource intensive still.
Right. And then, regulation is a whole nother topic, but like when you talk about the size of these systems, it reminded me of, I think it was in Europe where they tried to require you to get a permit if your model went over X parameters. I think it was like a billion parameters, but immediately all the biggest models were larger than a billion parameters.
I didn't know this.
So it seems like it's there's the accelerationists, and then there's the people who are saying, hey, let's pump the brakes a little bit. This is getting out of hand, and the government's trying to step in a bit, but it's not really evident how to step in a meaningful way.
No. And I think most likely not desirable to try to slow down progress.
Okay.
I think it's more finding as a society as a whole, like guiding rules, guardrails, to see, okay, what do we want these systems really to be done? And it's extremely difficult to control this, especially if you have actors that are not in the same regulatory space. Huh?
I mean, even in the confines of one company, it's incredibly difficult, right? Never mind as a whole. All right.
But I think we have this in other fields. If you look at China and America, to go in a completely different field, have extremely advanced weaponry systems that are using AI at large scale. If you look in connected combat systems, or advanced targeting systems, that's stuff with which you can do a lot of bad things, of course. So.
Yeah, it kind of feels like the future of warfare has no humans involved. It's going to be drone versus drone.
That's a big part of what we are seeing, and it might go much more in the cyber criminality or cyber war, medical war, like through synthesized viruses and stuff like this.
Right.
But for sure, less humans on the front. We already see this. I mean, concretely in Ukraine, it's essentially drones now that are striking.
Right.
And on the front line, still humans, of course.
So you're still an accelerationist, but you think once we reach the point where we realize we need to pump the brakes, then we pump the brakes. We don't do it ahead of time.
I'm an accelerationist. That's not a word I'm using usually.
Okay.
In the sense that I think we are programmed for this.
We're programmed for this.
I mean, we, the humankind, we go forward. We are curious by our very nature.
Okay.
So I think progress will happen. The question is, are we capable of managing it? And in my darker days, I'm not entirely convinced that we can handle this as a species. The power intelligence gave us. I mean, human intelligence. Now we speak about super intelligence. And I'm sorry for this, but I think humankind has not always shown that it's capable of growing and do essentially nice things with our capabilities. The history shows us more the contrary. So
what are you worried about on your darker days?
History is full of wars. If you look back, we here in Europe, we're living like 70, 80 years of peace, which is really the exception more than anything else. So that's a bit long to explore. But sometimes I feel, I think we're going to take it off the editing, but sometimes I feel that we cannot handle our own intelligence. We don't tend towards being good collectively.
Okay.
We are dominant. We want to take control. I'm talking about humankind as a whole here. So. And history just seems to teach that we are capable of creating catastrophes at scale. So.
Okay.
So we will see. Sorry.
No. It was fascinating to hear your thoughts on sort of this biological mandate to go forward.
Yes.
And AI, you see AI as a logical progression, I guess, of the evolution of man. Is that fair?
I would think so. Yeah.
Okay.
An evolution of, humanity has invented oral languages, then started coding languages into an alphabet. That's an extremely fascinating step forward in our evolution. And the speed of innovation, of capabilities has extremely exponentially increased well before AI came up. Just because we were able to encode information, exchange it at scale, books were written, so you can consume insights and intelligence very easily, and the tools we talk about here are just yet accelerating this. And the less humans are in the space, the faster the progress will be.
Right. Have you seen the movie Idiocracy by any chance? In a nutshell, humans invent this extremely modern technology, which is so powerful that they're able to stop working altogether. And so by virtue of their intelligence, they're able to, hand off all of their daily tasks to robots. And then as a natural consequence, they're not using that brain as a muscle any longer. And so they get dumber and dumber.
That sounds like an interesting thought, yeah.
Yeah, kind of your ideas on AI as a continuation of the evolution of man kind of made me think of Idiocracy. Kind of, are we on that path?
I don't know, but I think the path, wherever it takes us, is accelerating.
Right.
And there were like super big steps in our history, invention of fire. I tend to believe that the biggest invention ever was language that we came up. Now we see language models that are accelerating.
What are your top three in humanity? Top three biggest hits of humanity?
The biggest progress?
Yes.
Language, fire, and I think moral systems. Religions first, and then moral systems, just to try to handle us as a collection of individuals, which is a difficult thing. I mean, all of our human history is really about trying to figure out how we can live together through religious systems, through secular moral systems. We spend a lot of time of trying to organize ourselves, punish evil behavior, define what is evil altogether. And as I'm a bit obsessed about language, the fact that large language models kicking in looks to me like an extreme acceleration of intellectual capabilities in the future.
Okay, and yet you still say go.
I say it will happen.
It will happen regardless.
No one can say stop.
No one can say stop.
Who could say we stop human progress?
Right.
We are built to play and to learn and to progress, I think.
I noticed in your top three, the AI didn't make it into the list. And I say that because some people, I've heard them rate AI as being as important as fire even.
Yeah, I think it should be somewhere there.
Somewhere there? Maybe number 5?
Frankly, I don't know. It is a very, very, very massive thing.
Okay.
But I see it as an increment of unlocking collective intelligence. So far, it's trying to mimic human intelligence. It uses human language, which is a very awkward thing for computers, by the way. If computers were only talking to each other, inventing ways to exchange, that would for sure not be English.
That's a fascinating term. I'd never heard that before. Unlocking collective intelligence. That's really what it is, isn't it? It's the intelligence that exists in the internet as a whole, and all of a sudden you now have access to it in a way where you don't have to do a Google search for everything.
And I'm deeply convinced, really. I'm half joking here, but currently we have language models, but it's using human languages, right, which are a very convoluted thing. Human language full of double senses, yes, of weak definitions of meanings, not very good for complex abstractions. Like mathematical space is better at this. So I tend to believe, but with no evidence, it's more a gut feeling that language models in the future will be based on non-human languages.
Okay. So sort of optimized languages for machines?
Capable of generating human language if they have to speak with humans. But
meaning that English is not the ideal language for two machines to be interacting in? There's more optimal...
Completely. There's research on this, by the way. And so in the early days of AI, and it was a meta paper, Facebook back then, they simulated markets, financial markets, and so they built small autonomous agents that were interacting with very simple vocabulary, like I buy, I quote, and things like this. But they were not incentivized of using English, and they developed their own language to talk to each other.
Did it sound like traders talking?
It was not human language.
Right.
So even linguists kicked in and say, okay, well, this is an interesting field of research. I mean, how would a language look like that is not that is not
funny.
grounded in our human history.
I wonder what their incentives were. I wonder if they were trained to kind of save on transmission, maybe save bytes.
In this case, they were trained on trying to optimize the financial
So meaning
outcome.
it needs to be fast, basically.
It needs to be fast. It needs to take decision based on market conditions, but it wasn't constrained or incentivized at all to use English. So
these two robots coalesced on, they agreed upon a language in which they were going to communicate with.
Exactly.
And there was no, I mean, I assume there was no alphabet. It was purely vocal. Was it a vocal?
No. It was like
textual.
more abstractions in the mathematical sense than traditional language as we see it.
Right.
So fascinating stuff.
That's a fascinating vision of the future.
But that's a bit of an unclear field still.
I think that's probably a good way to end it.
That's more
the brand new alphabet. Yeah. Well, this has been fascinating. Thank you so much for joining us, Dietmar.
Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure.
I hope you found it interesting.
Wonderful. Thank you. And for our listeners, if you wouldn't mind hitting like and subscribe if you enjoyed our content, there's lots more coming. Thanks.